Hello everyone, this is Marco and welcome back to my channel. Today I will be showing you how to turn your Hammond Collection Tyrannosaurus Rex into the Buck Tyrannosaurus Rex from the Lost World. I will be using the newly designed replacement head that I made with Syrett Tech, but this time I'll be using Rod's Random Works replacement eyes as well. With the combination of those parts and some extra modifications with Milliput, I will show you how to take this Tyrannosaurus to the next level. I should probably mention that I'll be using some of the footage from the previous Hammond Collection replacement part video. As some of you might know, we've been moving house and we've had a pretty awful time being without one for quite a bit, so it just made things easier for me to reuse some footage. But I've also recorded some brand new parts with the buck head. The footage I reused is purely just the sections on how to remove the existing Hammond Collection parts and preparing the figure for the new ones. So enough babbling and let's get back to work. This is quite an advanced project. If you don't want to risk damaging your T-Rex, I recommend not doing this modification, but if you're quite confident in your skills, then you should be fine. Just pay extra attention and extra care. It's quite an invasive procedure which involves removing this kind of head cover right here, making sure we do not damage any of the rubber parts. We'll be utilizing boiling water or really hot air, which will allow the plastic to soften and it will be much easier to remove the parts. First of all, you'll need a bowl and some boiling water. You can also use a heat gun or a hair dryer. I don't really have mine here at the moment, which is why I'm using boiling water. The next thing you'll need is your figure. We'll be dunking the feet of the figure in the boiling water, which will help the plastic soften and we'll be able to pull the feet off quite easily. I recommend dunking it for about a minute, then you pull it out of the water and let it drip for a little bit. That will help it cool down so you don't burn your fingers. And then you grab the foot, you pull it, and it should pop off quite easily. Now it's time to put the new feet on. I have marked the correct foot for each leg, so you will see an R on the right one and an L on the left one, on the inside of the foot. These parts are 3D printed with resin, so they might not pop on very easily. I recommend grabbing a scalpel and just running it around the hole of the peg. Also, dunking it in some hot water helps too. I recommend not keeping it in for too long because it might damage the resin. But if the water is warm and not boiling, it helps it soften a little bit and it's much easier to pop on. Using the same water that we used earlier is probably a good idea because it means that it's cooled down enough to use on the resin. Then you position the foot and firmly press and it should lock into position. We started this project with the easiest steps. Now comes the really tricky part, the head. You might need to top up the warm water again because it's probably cooled down a bit too much. But don't use completely boiling water on this part because it might damage the rubber parts. We will be removing the bottom jaw first. So dunk the head again for about a minute, let it drip and then slide your finger in that area and pull. Remember to be gentle because we do not want to warp the pink plastic underneath. Feel free to keep dunking it in and out the water just to soften the plastic every time you feel like it's getting a bit tough. Once you spot these pegs, make sure you heat them up quite a bit by dunking it in the water again because we want to avoid the pegs sticking inside the peg holes and potentially breaking inside. They are glued in, but if they're sufficiently warm, they might just be able to pop off. Sometimes they're glued in so well that no matter how much you try, the pegs might break. If that is the case, then I will show you exactly how to fix this issue. As you can see, this is exactly what happened with mine. Luckily, the peg towards the tip of the snout did not break. Before we continue to the next step, remember to remove the teeth first. Now the teeth are not glued in at all, so you can just slide them out of their pegs and they come straight off. We're removing them because the new head parts already have teeth integrated with them. So which is the best way to remove broken pegs from the peg holes? The best way to remove them is to use a Dremel with the correct drill bit size. Unfortunately, when recording this video, I did not have my Dremel with me, but I did have this tool instead. It is not electric powered, but it works just as well. You just need a little bit more elbow grease. So we grab our Dremel and we insert it where the peg holes should be. and you pretty much drill the peg holes out. You can repeat this as many times as you need for every blocked peg hole. Once every single peg hole is free, we can align the pegs from the brand new replacement part and pop it on to see if it fits well. Make sure you do not glue it in yet, because this procedure is important. It helps us realize if we have warped the pink plastic at all. Another reason is that we have to dunk the head in again. We do not want to glue the bottom jaw on before dunking it in the water again, because we might risk damaging it. So now, let's put the head in the hot water again and repeat the same steps for the top part of the head. I recommend topping the water up with some more boiling water. Again, not too hot because we do not want to damage the rubber parts. Just like with the bottom jaw, we need to insert our finger into that area and slightly pry the parts away from each other. The top of the head is usually a bit tougher than the bottom jaw, so don't hesitate to dunk it in the hot water over and over again. I used a tool to gently pry the top of the head away from that pink plastic. Make sure you slide the tool in this area right here. It was of great help, and I recommend you all do this too. Remember to be firm and gentle at the same time, because we do not want to warp that pink plastic at all. It is very, very important. Luckily, mine came apart all in one piece, which makes things much easier. No need to use the Dremel. And this is what you should have right now. Sure, it looks pretty ugly, but we will make it look pretty again. It's interesting how these rubber parts latch onto these peg holes. If you want, you can keep them, and let's move on to the next stage. Time to see if the new replacement part fits on the pink plastic fine. I'm aligning the pegs and everything fits fine. So now is the time to glue the parts together. I use super glue and some activator too. I highly recommend you purchase some activator because it comes in really handy. Make sure you apply the glue inside the peg holes, around the peg holes, and around the mouth. This ensures a much more secure adhesion. I'm usually quite generous with my super glue. I also recommend using more dense and thick versions of super glue over the more liquid ones. Then I spray the replacement part with the activator and then align everything and press. Make sure you press the pink plastic with the replacement part together. Make sure every peg is inserted correctly and all the way. And now we repeat the same exact procedure for the bottom jaw. And this is what it looks like with the replacement parts. I'm not going to stop here though, as I would like to go the extra mile and make this thing a bit more screen accurate. And now I'll show you how to take it to the next level. I will be using Milliput to sculpt in some extra detail on the top of the head and on the neck. As you can see on the animatronic, the top of the neck is much more pointy over the one that Mattel has made. So that's what we'll be doing with the top of the neck. So after mixing the two parts of the epoxy putty, you apply it on the head, paying close attention to the reference material, i.e. pictures of the animatronic, and blending it in with your fingers and some water and a paintbrush. Then I use some cocktail sticks to sculpt in the creases in the skin and some detail. Once you're happy with the result, you can let it sit for a few hours. You can speed up the setting and curing process by using some heat, like a hairdryer. Next, I'm making the eyes slightly smaller. To be able to accommodate Rod's Random Works eyes, Syrett Tech and I had to modify my sculpt the tiniest bit, which makes the eyes look a little bit bigger. So by adding some Milliput, we can make it as close to screen accurate as possible. One of the most iconic parts of a male Tyrannosaurus from the Jurassic franchise is that big saggy neck skin, which is quite a bit different from the more streamlined neck on the female. It is very iconic to these Tyrannosaurs, so let's replicate that on ours. So we do that by heating up the rubber neck part with a hairdryer in order to soften it. Then we grab a tool and we pull the rubber down a bit. That will give us some space to work with and make it look a little bit more saggy. So next we grab some Milliput and we put it on the neck piece in front of it, the one between the head and that other rubbery neck part. Make sure again to pay close attention to your reference material. I'm using a combination of tools, including the back of a paintbrush, some cocktail sticks, and water and paintbrushes. Fun fact, when I designed this replacement part, I didn't have my Hammond collection figures with me, so I had to rely on other people's feedback. Designing something without having it in hand is really hard, and unfortunately there is a little something that I need to fix after assembly, and that is the shape of the back of the head. If we grab a hairdryer and apply heat in this area and then press down with the fingers, it helps blend the shape of the back of the head more with the neck. I also recommend you put some super glue between the pink plastic and that part of the head too, so that it stays down. That improves the screen accuracy by quite a bit, so I recommend you do that too. Once everything is set, we can paint the figure. You might notice that some parts that I added with the Milliput are painted brown. I did that just so I could see if the texture blended in correctly. But now it's time to paint the T-Rex green. I mixed this green here and I'm applying it pretty much all over the body, with the exception of the belly. I'm going to try and make my own sort of rendition of the buck T-Rex, kind of based upon the films but also by the crowdfund Mattel version. I'm going to kind of blend both together, making it look as screen accurate as possible, but also giving it the kind of Mattel paintwork feel. It's a shame the crowdfund buck didn't happen, but fret not, you can try and make it become a reality with some elbow grease and patience by using these replacement parts. If we can't get the buck, then we might as well do it ourselves. The community wants, so the community delivers. The Jurassic community is full of creatives, and that's one of the coolest things ever. As you can see, I'm painting the top part of the head too, and a tiny bit of the bottom jaw as well. The next part is to paint the underbelly color, or the counter shading. It runs through all the way from the tip of the snout, underneath the dinosaur, to the tip of the tail. I used some off-white for this, and I blended it in at the edges with the green. I also painted the back of the thighs and the back of the arms. I added a gradient between the counter shading and the green, with some yellow. I added some of that yellow on the face too, the fenestra in front of the eye and the one behind. And now comes the time-consuming part, painting all of the dark patterns. I used a dark green for this, and I used the Jurassic Park Trilogy Dinosaur Style Guide as reference. I followed it loosely and kind of went with my gut. However, I did use it a lot for the patterns on the head. Next, I did the yellow striping on the back. Ideally, you would use an airbrush for this, but I don't have one, so I used some paintbrushes instead. Then I painted the scars in with some dark pink, and then I painted the teeth with some off-white. I sealed it with this fantastic hobby and craft sealer by Plasticoat. This is the best stuff ever. It is matte, and here's the barcode if you want to check it out. Once that was done and dry, I cleaned the eyes, and this is it. This is the final result, and I really love it. It's probably one of my most favorite projects I've done. It was a bit tough, but the end result really does pay off. It looks really nice, especially with Rod's Random Works replacement eyes. So big thanks to him, and a massive thank you to Syrett Tech as well. Big thanks to my buddy Martin for hooking me up with this figure. Thanks so much, you're the best. Let me know if you've got some replacement parts and you're gonna try it yourself, and I really hope this video helps you along the way. I highly recommend you go and watch the Jurassic Park Compound's videos on the replacement parts too, because he is a wizard. So go do that. Let me know what you think in the comment section down below, and thank you so much for watching. I would like to give a massive thank you to all of my Patreons. Seriously guys, your support really does mean the world to me, as it helps me do what I love for you. You help me buy materials, and most of all, you give me a helping hand with improving the quality of the content of my videos. Even if it's just a small donation, every little helps.